I just wanted to thank first Pastor Baker. Could I come down just a little bit? Sorry. For the opportunity to be on staff here. What I've told him before and what I tell you guys now is that him allowing me to be the youth pastor here is actually a fulfillment of a dream and a goal that God had placed in my heart ever since I was 12 years old. At a youth camp, I was called to be a youth pastor, and then life happens, and you have struggles, and how you respond to those struggles will shape your life sometimes, and that's what I'm here to talk with you about today. So I wanted to thank Pastor first for the opportunity. Next, I want to thank my youth leaders. As Pastor said, my name is Pastor Brad Heathcock, or for my students that are in here, it's Coach O. My first name is Olin. It's a family name. And so everyone's always like, why do they call you Coach O? And I always love whenever I get emails where it's like Coach O, like O-H. I'm like, well, Heathcock, so you're not wrong, but no, okay, we're going to let it go. I work here at Advantage Academy, and it's a wonderful opportunity that I should have never had. And it's always fun to do what you're passionate about because it never really feels like work, even though you get weary. And so I'm blessed to be able to do that. I coach all the sports, and I teach PE and health, which means they tell me what games they want to play, and I make sure they don't hurt each other. I make a lot of bad jokes, not inappropriate, unless you ask my principal, but just bad. They're just not funny. But if you can't laugh at yourself, then, well, at least in my case, who will? I want to thank my youth leaders because as Pastor said, we started pretty small and we've grown a lot. And I just know that it doesn't really have much to do with me. I'm not that smart, and I'm not that clever, and I'm not that cool, and I'm not that funny. Definitely not that funny. But I love kids. And I know my students are smiling right now because they see me already getting emotional. That's okay. I embrace it. Our first youth meeting was the Sunday after Easter. Easter 2015 was the first time I was introduced to the church as the youth pastor. And I think we had our first actual youth meeting with kids and everything. The next Sunday night after that, I think we had 2 kids and 4 leaders. I want to thank Danny, Alex, Haley, and Madison for all the help that they've given me. I know there's no way that I would be able to keep up if I didn't have them. Being a bivocational youth pastor and having a full-time job, it's just, it gets on you sometimes. We started with 2, and over the last 4 weeks, for some reason, we've grown to averaging over 25, and I have no idea how that happened. And last week, we had 28 kids show up, and I didn't even know, and nobody else knew half of them, I felt like. And I was like, okay, well, how did y'all, well, just, you know what, never mind, I'm glad you're here. And so I think kids just really, really like to throw dodgeballs at each other. I think that we can just, add it all up at the end of the day to dodgeball. God moves through dodgeball. I have an Instagram post where I said, remember, kids, it's not church unless you get to hit someone with a dodgeball. And that is reigning true today. So thank you guys. Got to thank my parents who are here today, Wayne and Robin. Emotions. Until I started teaching and really getting to experience a lot more than what I had already, I closed myself off, and I just really didn't open myself up to a lot. I just really, more than anything now, appreciate and know that I took for granted a lot of how my parents raised me. Gave me a great example of what it feels like, what it looks like to have unfailing, unconditioning love. I didn't get away with everything. That was my younger sister. But I had discipline through love. And if I'm half as good as as they are whenever I have kids, I'm going to be all right. Lastly, my beautiful girlfriend, Courtney, who's here. I have to give her a shout out or else I'm going to hear about it later, so there you go. Just kidding. I always used to laugh whenever I would sit in chapel at SAGU. That's where I graduated from. Because every time a new speaker came up, I could call it. And what was really funny is even though we weren't supposed to, we all had our cell phones out and we would live tweet the presenter, and we'd either be saying things that are kind of cynical or be retweeting the good points that he made, but usually just having conversations with each other. And I could always call it because the new speaker's going to get up there, give their thanks like I just did, and then the next thing you're going to know, and it's without any doubt, that a picture of their family is going to show up on that screen, and they're going to say, my beautiful wife and kids and everything. And so I guess I'm bringing that up because I can't believe I just did that. So it's pretty cool. I have something for you today, something that's really hard to talk about. I have to be vulnerable today. I have to admit my mistakes today. But I'm only going to admit my mistakes because I'm going to hope and pray that my mistakes can help you not make the same ones. That you can learn something, what it might look like, what it might feel like, and how it's an ever-going, ongoing pursuit of the presence of God. What I think mostly I just want you to know is that you're not the only one who's struggling. And there's not only the good stories are the only people who can prevail through that. I guess the title of my message, if I had to give a title to it, would be People, Paradigms, Pain, something along those lines. See, how you view your problems will determine how much pain you really go through. So you can save yourself a lot of pain if you see your problems through the right paradigm. Paradigm is a word I used to pretend that I knew what it meant. I tell my kids, because it's part of our Leader and Me curriculum, that we have to teach that it's how you see things. So I say paradigms and they say how you see things. And so now I know what it means. But how you see things will determine how much pain you go through. Your problems don't define you, but how you deal with them will. Your mistakes don't make up who you are, but how you make up for them will. See, I've been through pain, and it's so funny because I hadn't gone through pain, and for the most of my life I hadn't gone through pain because I just had it so well. I wasn't a spoiled brat, but I was spoiled for sure. Sheltered from a life of pain. And I find it no mistake the devil's timing whenever he wants to bring down what he has for you. It's never a mistake. The timing is never a coincidence. That's why it hurts so bad, because he got you at a time when he knew he could hurt you the baddest. He was waiting. See, why would the devil have any problem with me receiving an anointing and a presence from God when I'm a child? If I wasn't going to do anything with it, he's going to wait until I have an opportunity to make an impact. And please, I'm a youth pastor. I'm not saying you can't make an impact as a child. I'm just saying I wasn't. I'm not that I wasn't. It was just that I wasn't doing all that I could because I was waiting for what I was going to do. See, I was called. I had a purpose on my life from a young age. You know what that's like? It's almost detrimental, because it was awesome to know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, but it was bad because I had to wait. And when I had to wait, I had to make decisions on whether I was going to go after it and prepare, or if I was going to wait and then try to show up whenever the time came. See, I always say that your expectation from God has to be met with preparation. Whatever you expect from God, you got to prepare just as big, if not bigger. I think that we miss that so much. People want to come to the altar and they want to receive from God. They ask God for prayers, and they do it genuinely. Don't get me wrong, you're doing it genuinely. You genuinely want to hear from God. I mean, if we're being honest, we all want that God-like love. Even if you don't believe in God, you want love. Nobody wants to be hateful. But we genuinely come after this love and this forgiveness and this grace that we hear about so much that they just become words. But we didn't come the right way, but we thought we did. We thought we came the right way so that when God doesn't meet us there, we blame Him or say He's not real. Or, oh, well, I guess I did my part, now God's got to do His. And if He doesn't, guess He's not real. I had been trapped in instant gratification salvation, if you want to call it that. I'm easily emotional, as you can tell. I've almost cried like 6 times in just my opening statement. I've always had a soft heart. God never had to break my heart or go through much trouble to break my heart to get through to me. When I was like 6 years old, I don't even remember this story. They just tell me about it. Coming to the altar of a worship night, I don't even know, was that Dallas First Assembly? I didn't even know what the gifts of the Spirit were. I didn't know what being slanged in the Spirit was. I didn't know what tongues were, prophecy, vision, stuff like that we read about in the Bible that freaks us out. But trust me, you can have these things today. We just don't come at it the right way. I didn't know what those things were. So whenever I apparently was walking up to the altar to go and receive this presence that I was drawn into because of my soft heart that's been instilled with me, I got up, I took a step up, and then they said that I I fell backwards, and it almost looked like I was lifted up and set down. And I'm not saying this to say, oh, look, you've experienced God, great. What about me? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that these things have been happening to me for a long time. The only thing I remember about that whole thing is waking up, and you know how if you ever fall asleep with gum in your mouth that wakes up and it's all deteriorated and it's nasty? Yeah, that's the only thing I remember about that. They tell me about it all the time, and I'm like, yeah, that gum was nasty. I remember my dad taking me up to the elders of the church. See, if there's one thing my dad will tell you is that whenever he talks about me, I leave. Because I can't stand him bragging on me. I don't like it. He knows that. I don't take compliments well. I don't know how to respond sometimes. That's why I'm so socially awkward. Whenever somebody says something nice to me, I say, yeah, well, the thing is, and I come up with all these things that are wrong that they didn't see instead of just saying thank you. He would take me to the elders, the older ladies in the church, and he'd be asking them, I guess, I don't remember, but I now looking at the context and being a little smarter than I was, I think he was trying to find something out, if what he was feeling and seeing in my life was real. And so he'd be asking them, does he have the anointing? I'm guessing, I didn't ever hear him say that, but who I did hear talk was the old lady when they said, yeah, you're right, he has the anointing. And immediately when I heard that, my heart is so soft, I started crying and I ran away. So I've always associated having the anointing of God with being a crybaby. And it's kind of true. From a young age, I had this access that people fight for their whole lives to just get a taste of. See, that's why I love my testimony. I've been on both sides of the spectrum. I've been the kid who can experience God almost whenever he wants. I mean, not really, but if I came to an altar, I'm just so emotional and tenderhearted that I'm going to cry. And that was the problem. Because now whenever I was on the other side of the spectrum because of mistakes and decisions that I made, when I would come to the altar and want that same anointing, it wouldn't be there. So the formula I had in my head was, I'm tenderhearted, come to the altar, feel something. And when that didn't work, I figured there must be something wrong with God. Or me. Either way, I'm not getting my instant gratification. We all know that we say nothing worthwhile comes easy. But when things don't come easy for us, we decide it's not worth our while. And for me, whenever I was suffering, things that I said I would never do, things I had never even thought about doing. I had been around these things, but it wasn't ever an issue for me. I went to those things. Why? Because I knew instant gratification was in them. I knew exactly what I was getting myself into. And honestly, there was so much pride in me that I didn't know about that I thought that I could handle it. I thought I could handle this sin. I thought I'd be okay. No, you don't understand. I have the anointing on my life. It's okay if I do this because I'm going to be able to overcome it. It's just going to be one time. I just need this feeling right now, and then I'm never going to do it again. I just need it right now to get me back to that place where I have been. That's not how it works. The wages of sin are death, and I know that more now than ever. See, I keep walking over here to look at my notes, but it's just not. That's not what's going to happen, I don't think. I knew that was going to happen, but whatever. So I've been an addict. It's hard for me to admit. I've been an addict. I've been the definition of depression. I've self-hurt myself because I didn't care, because I wanted God to respond so badly. I've suffered loss and heartbreak. I suffered the loss of my best friend since the age of 9 years old. He was 21, got in a car accident, gone in an instant. You know what the worst part about that was to me? Not living the right example in front of him when I was his only example that he could have had. That's what we don't get about our purpose in life, is that we're always waiting on God to tell us what it is whenever He's given you gifts. Your purpose in life is to use the gifts you have to reach who you can. Because there's people in your life that I will never get to talk to. There's people in your life that pastor's never going to get to talk to. There's people in your life that aren't going to go to a Sunday service, and you're the only one, you're the only way they're ever going to hear the right word, the gospel presented correctly. And if you don't do it, they're going to have a misperception of what that is. And they're going to come down that one time whenever they might even talk about it, but they went after God the way that they see you go after God, and they didn't come right. I'm not condemning you or convicting. I'm not trying to judge you, because trust me, I'm the worst one of it all. And the worst part about me is I was so caught up in what everybody was telling me I was that I wanted to keep it all for myself. I didn't want anybody else to be labeled what I was labeled. The Christian guy. The Rev, it was my nickname in high school because I would pray before every sporting event I ever played in. I would have people ask me questions. Their parents would say I was such a good kid. I started not only reading my own press and believing it, I started trying to keep it for myself. See, that's so backwards. Because if I'm what they say I am, then I should be trying to spread what I have. But instead, I didn't want anybody else to have the same attention or the same status of holier than thou that I thought that I had achieved. And I didn't even, if I'm being honest with you, I didn't even see that coming. I didn't even see that. I was not acting in that. I didn't recognize it, but it was still there. See, I love this Psalms. Is it Psalms? Yeah, Psalms 19:12. When David's praying for the sin that's lurking in his heart, his hidden faults. I've said before, and I don't know if this is completely right, but I've always said, show me a Christian who thinks he's got it all under control. I'll show you a Christian who's about to lose control of it all. You'll never be where you're supposed to be. You're never going to arrive until you get to the gate and you meet your Maker and He says, well done, my good and faithful. We're always growing. See, you'll never be perfect. You'll never be perfect. until that day. So don't stop. Don't think you've arrived. Don't think you have it under control. See, if I can say my testimony to anybody more with more passion and just wanting you to understand, it's those who think that they got it. They think that you have it under control. You're good. You're a good Christian. That doesn't even make sense, a good Christian. There's only one kind of Christian. It's Christian. My story is one that I wish I never had, but now I know why I have been able to accept it, at least. It's God gives you experiences so you can help other people experience them less. I mean, think about it. Any parent in here, and I don't have kids, but I have like 300 of them over there. Any parent in here, I mean, how many times have we said or heard the phrase, I wish I would have known when I was younger what I know now? Or, trust me, I understand. I say this to my kids all the time. I say, trust me, I get it, I understand. I didn't want to listen to adults either whenever I was your age, but I tell you what, if I knew what I knew then, or then what I know now, do you understand that your story is his story? Your story is his story. A testimony is used to reach people that have the same things going on in your life, and if you are lucky enough to persevere and you held on, you made it through, then I think it's your duty to share it. And I didn't want to share mine for the longest time because I didn't want to be vulnerable, because I've still got friends in my hometown that saw me on both sides of the spectrum, except for the only one that they're remembering right now is the hypocrite. I'm scared to stand up on a stool and have everybody see me and be called a hypocrite, and that's wrong of me. That's prideful of me. How dare I withhold something that God's pulled me through? So it's hard for me to share this today. It's not easy. If I could have seen my problems through the right paradigm, I could have saved myself a lot of pain. There's value in being vulnerable. We don't need to compare our pains. We need to share our pains with each other. Galatians 6:2. I should probably turn to that. Or he's got it. Share each other's burdens, and in this way obey the law of Christ. Share each other's burdens. You don't have to suffer alone. But here's the problem. Church has caused a lot of people a lot of pain. Church has caused a lot of people a lot of pain, and whenever a church causes you pain, man, that thorn sticks for a while. There is a purpose in church, and that's to share each other's suffering. Nobody should suffer alone. But I was too prideful, I know for a fact, because I knew better and did wrong. See, I can totally relate to Paul in Romans 7 whenever he's talking about how bad of a person is, because he wants to do right, but instead he does wrong. He knows what he ought to do, but he doesn't do what he should. He's battling with that because our flesh is sinful. We are always dealing with the struggle of sin. But the church has caused a lot of people's pain because not only do we not want to share our sin and our suffering, we want to make everybody else think that we don't have any. It's both ways. There's always going to be Christians who think that they're better than you because their life isn't as much of a struggle with sin as yours is. But what they don't understand is that just because you're not doing anything wrong does not mean you are doing something right. Just because you're not doing anything wrong doesn't mean you're doing something right. See, I wasn't doing anything wrong, not really. But I wasn't doing a lot right, because if I would have been doing a lot right, then I would have realizing that the emotional experiences that I had right here meant nothing if I didn't take them out there. If I couldn't spread the anointing and the fire and however you want to word it that I received right here out there, I might as well not have experienced it in the first place. See, we're not called to experience emotions just at church. In fact, if church is the only place that you're being filled, well, I got to question your faith. And I'm not judging. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not convicting. I just want you to know that I've experienced God here. But I've not done a good job of taking it out there. See, we think that it's like this. I'm gonna bring my cup to church and I'm gonna get filled, and then I got my cup filled and I'm gonna take small sips throughout the week so I don't run out. Small sips throughout the week so I don't run out. Because I don't know. It's gonna be a whole week until I get some more. I can't run out. It's gonna be a whole week. I gotta make this last. And then we're taking small sips all throughout the week, and we come around, and here's the part that got me in trouble, is I came back around to fill my cup up again, and I still had some left. So, I'm not going to waste the anointing. I fill up with what I got. I get filled again in small sips, and now I'm really feeling it. I'm really feeling the presence of God, but by the time I reach those doors, I've come to, and I'm back to my small sips because I got to make sure that this lasts. See, you've tricked yourself into thinking you had a good day when really you just had a bad week. Sharing your cup. People are dying of thirst and we want to ration ours. Do you think that Christ needs you? Do we think that Christ needs us to ration his outpouring of his Spirit? There's an abundance that you can tap into on a daily basis. I'm so passionate about this because I've experienced it. I remember my first problem was not that big and I didn't deal with it the right way. And then my second problem inevitably was a lot worse. But since I didn't know how to deal with the first one, I definitely didn't know how to deal with the second one. And pretty soon I realized after a long time what sin actually does. It grows. It festers. It never just stays one sin. It spreads. Even though we think that we have control over this one thing, it never stays one thing. It might not be a tangible thing that you do, but it could be a spiritual thing that you do. It could be something, an attitude in your mind that's going to keep you from coming back to where you know you should be. And mine grew exponentially and fast. Before I knew it, I didn't know who I was anymore because everything everybody ever told me I was is everything I had been running away from, and I didn't have the humility to go back to that. I didn't have the humility to admit to people that I'm sorry, I know everything that I've told you in the past is true, but I don't know how to live it. I don't know how to live it. I couldn't say that to people. After my friend passed away, I spoke at his eulogy, and I gave a call for salvation that I wasn't even living myself. It was a crazy realization that the people that I'm looking out at in the crowd are the people I've been partying with, and I'm going to ask them to, who they know does the same things that they do, to live a life that I'm not living. It was a low on top of a low. But I'm done being scared of my story. I can't be scared of it. It's in the past. It has no hold on me. Worry's not going to buy me any extra time if I hold out. See, where do we get off sometimes? Thinking that we got to get it all together before we'll come to Christ. See, there's nothing that we can do on our own that's ever going to make us good enough for Christ. There's nothing that we're going to do that's going to impress Him. There's no level of discipline you will achieve. There's no level of organization you will achieve. There's no level of productivity that you're going to achieve that is going to make Him be impressed with you. The only thing He wants you to do, and the only thing that He's ever wanted you to do, is choose Him. This is the only thing He wants you to do. On your own. I wasn't doing wrong, but I wasn't doing right. we have a long list of no's as Christians. We have a long, don't do this, don't do that. What we really need is a long list of goes. Go do this, go do that. See, in the world and not of the world keeps a lot of people from helping the world. I'm in the world, but I'm not of the world, so I don't associate with the world, so I really don't know how I'm going to help the world, but I know that I don't do what they do, so I'm better than them, so I'm going to keep it that way. I don't know. I don't want to get too close. I've only got my one cup for the last of the week. What we need to do is get a bigger cup, experience God out there, and refill our own cup. So if you don't drink what you got, it might last, but what for? What's the purpose? I always play devil's advocate and try to look at both sides of the story. I know that the best way to defend your argument is to figure out how to beat it. And becoming a youth pastor was really humbling. I didn't feel qualified. I still don't. I don't feel qualified to be on this stage. I don't feel qualified to be called a pastor, but that's where I pause, and I'm so thankful because God doesn't call the qualified. Where would his glory be if he only called the qualified? If he only called the best people to do the best jobs, the hardest jobs, the toughest jobs, if he only called those who were capable of completing those jobs, where would the dependence on him be? Where would the glory for him be? No, God does not qualify, that's a new word. God does not call the qualified, he qualifies the called. You have a calling, so you're all qualified. Even if your only purpose in life is to reach those that nobody else can in your own life, that should be enough. That should be enough. If it's the only thing I have to live for is to reach that one relative that I know is never going to go to church, that's enough. I know sometimes we feel stagnant and stuck, and that the steps are bigger than they were before. But that's where we have to lean, not on our own understanding, and realize that whenever you look back and see all the steps that you've already taken, it's going to be the same faith that got you over those steps that's going to get you over the one that you're facing right now. See, all you have to do is hold on. All you have to do is persevere. Trust me, I know it's not easy. I didn't do it. But now I know how to do it. See, it's so hard for me to admit. That's why I'm dancing around it. My addiction almost cost me everything that I was ever called to do. It should have. But that's not how God works. See, let me just say, my addiction got me into some trouble. Some real trouble. And you would think that I would learn my lesson, but no, it drove me worse. I got into more trouble. I almost got kicked out of university over here, and I was lucky to be able to complete my degree. I got kicked off the football team. I didn't get to play my senior year of football. If you've ever noticed me talk about football, I never say my senior year. I always say my last year. I was fortunate enough to have a good season. The year before, I led the team in tackles, which is not good, by the way, for the position I played. I played safety, and your safety shouldn't be making all the tackles. That means that they're gaining a lot of yards. But hey, I like to hit people, so I didn't complain. I also led all the defensive backs in the nation in tackles. I was just shy of 100. I had gotten the Defensive MVP award, and I was picked to be an NAIA All-American that next year. My dream was never to make it to the NFL because I'm realistic. If I had the opportunity, if you ask me, yeah, I think I could, but hey, we're not going to talk about that. My dream and my goal, what I was shooting for, was the Canadian Football League, and I had shot that. I had shot my chance to graduate from college, put my family in such a bind. See, this is another blow. This is after my friend's been gone, and after I'm dealing with all this depression the wrong way. Now I really don't think I'm worth anything. I was lucky enough to be able to finish my degree, and the only thing I had left to do was student teach. I just had to do 1 semester of student teaching, and I had my degree. And before that semester came, I remember right towards the end of the semester, 2 things that I had been wanting my entire life happened for me. I had hope. I was offered a youth pastor's job, actually. I applied for it with all this stuff hanging over me, and after talking with the pastor for just a few minutes, he offered me the job. Are you serious? God, you're so amazing. I was so thankful to God, and I was feeling it again. My cup was full. And why? Because he gave me something. He gave me a handout. I'm like, that's how you work, God. That's the God I know. Instant gratification. That's the God I know. It was like a week later, I got a call on the way to morning chapel, that the pastor said, hey, Brad, we talked to the board, and I'm sorry that they're not okay with what you've been through. They wouldn't approve me. And so I'm like, okay, well, I thought I saw some light, God, and it is something I'm willing to do, and it's in your purpose for my life, and you're not going to, I don't understand. I remember it's so cliche, but I don't care. I was sitting in the parking lot at SAGU, and I was just, man, I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was as low as I could ever be. And I looked up in the clouds. That's the cliche part. And I was just so mad. Because I knew where my heart really was. Even if I wasn't acting it out, I knew and I know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what the title of what I'm supposed to do is, but I know how I'm supposed to do it. I'm supposed to share. I'm supposed to pour into. I'm supposed to be a light. And whenever I had an opportunity to do that and it was taken away as quick as it was given to me, I was so mad. And I almost gritting through my teeth, I looked up and I said, and it's cliche, I know, but God, I know you're testing me again, but I'm not going to fail this time. See, I'm so tired of feeling this way that I don't care if I do it in spite, God. I'm not failing this time. See, I was so used to feelings. I had to have the feeling to feel God, to know God, to be with God. And so I went into SAGU and I worshiped my heart out. I mean, like, I usually don't get too pumped up and jump and stuff, but, you know, I raised my hands and stuff and I went after God hard, making a fool of myself for God. And I didn't feel a thing, not one thing. And it's kind of discerning, but I was so determined because I was so mad. I went home and I just kept going after God on my own without having to have something get me there, like worship or a band or a pastor. And I've been a Christian, I mean, kind of through those years, right? But since I was like 12, and I never realized the importance of devotion time, no matter how many times I had heard it. I knew the scriptures. I knew the important ones. I knew the powerful ones. I knew what great song and what time in that song I was going to feel emotions. But I didn't realize that whenever you experience God and you're being your own catalyst towards it, there's nothing more powerful because it's more real. You're never going to have any doubt on what got you there. It was you reaching out for the presence and the presence reaching back and finding your hand. And that's powerful. And that's what it's all about. See, ever since the very beginning, God's wanted that personal relationship with us. We messed it up and He put a plan in place to get it back. And I love how crazy it is and how crazy it might sound to people, because I don't need a God that's normal. I don't need a God that can be logical. I can be logical. I can kind of be normal. I don't need a God that's like that. I need a God that I don't understand. I need a God that's way beyond anything I can comprehend, because if I'm going to put everything into Him, and I had to, I need to know that He can take it. And He did. I remember just having a random thought. I had suffered with depression, anxiety, and that fueled my addiction, and I didn't know if I was ever going to get out of it. I was trying to come back from it so many times, and I'd come here and experience, and I'd be like, God spoke to me, I'm healed, I'm free. But I would go out there and I wouldn't walk it out, and so then I'd be back in my addiction thinking that it was God not moving powerful enough in me to overcome this, whenever really it was me not moving powerful enough in God outside of this. And I had a thought, and I was like, what? And I realized it had been almost 3 weeks since I had gone back to that addiction. 3 weeks. You don't understand. That's a big deal because I couldn't go a day. I couldn't go away from my house without knowing that I was going to be able to feed this thing. And the best part is I had no urge. Zero. I love a God who can do the huge and miraculous, but I love a God more that works in the small and the mysterious. See, I wasn't even thinking about it. I had my eyes fixed on Him, so I wasn't worried about it, what everything else was around me. Even though it was in spite, and even though it was in, I'm going to push this thing until it just blows up. God, either you're going to be there or I'm going to be coming after you forever. I didn't care. I would rather live for that than with all the pain and all the sickness and all the separation from what I once had. And I was so happy. I honestly didn't trust it. What's crazy is I had access at that moment to go right to it if I wanted to, and I didn't, except for to throw it away. Never picked it up again. It's been a little bit over 3 years now, sober. It's not easy to admit. Nobody's harder on myself than me. Okay. I'm about done. Ever since that moment of being freed from addiction, I knew that God had showed me that I had been thinking about the wrong thing to get to where I wanted to be. I'd been thinking about all the things that I'm not supposed to do instead of thinking about the things that I should do. I was too focused on the things that I needed to get right in my life that I didn't think about the thing that I could do that would just clear all of that out of the way. I was thinking about the one right thing to do. I was thinking about all the wrong things not to do. Guys, we have a lot of things that we're not supposed to do. Our kids are experiencing things younger and younger that they shouldn't be experiencing ever. I hear conversations going on in school. I'm like, how do you know about that? Why do you know about that? See, that tree of knowledge and good and evil comes in the form of a cell phone now. And you're a click away from whatever you don't need to know. And the bad thing is they stumble upon it not on their own accord sometimes. And their innocence is gone. I knew I was healed and I knew it was God, and miraculously, by some random connection, I was able to do my student teaching here at Advantage Academy. It was the only place within the time frame that I had. It was the only way. There was no other way. Just a random family connection through I don't even know. I honestly, because I don't know. But I got to student teach. I was so happy to be around kids. And I immediately knew that I was where I was supposed to be, where I wanted to be. I fell in love with those kids so fast. I tell them that all the time. I don't know if they believe me or not, but it's true. I worked my butt off because it wasn't work. I did whatever I was asked and more, and loved on the kids even though I knew I'd probably never get to do this again. That, I get the student teach here, but whenever I apply for a job, I'm not going to be accepted because of what's happened in my past. The last day of my student teaching, the kids signed a basketball for me, and I barely made it to the bathroom before I just broke down. Because I knew, this is the last time I'm going to get to do this. So, lo and behold, we know the end of that story, right? I got a call halfway through the summer, which was crazy. Is I wasn't expecting it, because before that, I had an interview out Southwestern on a job fair, and I got offered a job at a school in Dallas ISD, head baseball coach. Man, that would have been bad. I don't know that much about baseball, even though I played. And it was, I couldn't believe it, because the principal was somebody who went to SAGU, whatever, offered it to me, said, all you got to do is apply, it's yours. Well, I was worried, and I had reason to be, because I got a call saying, sorry, Mr. Heathcock, we can't accept you. I knew it. I'm never going to get to do this. Then I get a call from Advantage. Hey, we have a PE job opening, and since you were here, do you want it? Let me think about that for a second. Yes. And I was so happy. I was so thankful. And then you're gonna tell me that 6 months into my first year here at teaching, that there's a youth pastor's job 10 steps away. You're talking about the two things that I've always really wanted to do, and that's coincidence? No. That's the grace of God. If you're willing to go and He's called you, you'll get there. One way or the other. I know that I've talked for a long time and shared some things that I'm probably going to feel like I shouldn't have, but I'm glad that I did, because I want you to know my heart. And I want you to know that I'm suffering, and I want to share your suffering. I'm never going to feel like a pastor if I ever get, when I'm called that. I'm never going to feel like, because I've been on both sides, and I've had to go through all these things, and I don't feel like I deserve it. But again, that's part of the testimony. So Danny, you want to come on up?